Hey guys, welcome to episode 3 of the Empowered Together podcast. Joining me today, I have Connor, I say IFBU Pro, Connor Rendchen. He's someone I've followed for a very long time on social media, and I've loved his journey as a sort of amateur coming into the pro league now, and it's someone I've definitely wanted to get onto this for a long time, so I'm absolutely grateful to have him on today.
You're welcome, mate.
So yeah, Connor, give yourself a little introduction.
Firstly, obviously, I appreciate you having me on the podcast.
Cheers.
So yeah, within the bodybuilding space, obviously you've summed it up pretty well. You know, started bodybuilding when I was 24, 25 properly, and like you say, you know, I've worked up through the amateur ranks, a lot of hard work, and last year I finally earned my pro card status. This year's more about being a coach. Pro coach, obviously, have took me on over the last 6 months, working closely with Callum and the coaches within the company, and we're just in an off season at the moment. So, yeah, I mean, it's been a very good 6 months. You know, I would say I've achieved 2 of my biggest goals within the industry. One being, you know, turn pro. The second being work for pro coach. So yeah, we're just working towards our next goals now. Cool. That's how we work, don't we?
Yeah, indeed. It's always leveling up, aren't we? Yeah.
We reach goals and then we set new ones.
Well, it's funny enough, like before I actually went to Alex, I had you in mind to be the coach to look out for.
Okay.
So I'd always basically loved your physique. Was it 212 you were doing heading for before? Yeah, or was it?
Yeah,
still are 212.
So, yeah, we'll be operating within the 212 division for sure.
And I just loved the kind of look and everything. I was like, hey, this is the guy I might go to, and then I kind of came across Alex and I thought he resonated with me.
Actually, well. Alex and myself, from what I can see, are quite similar in terms of how we coach our clients. Mm-hmm. We're quite empathetic.
Yeah.
We put ourselves in the client's shoes. We try to understand the client's perspective. That's one thing I've noticed with Alex anyway. Yeah. He's a very good coach from that side of things.
I mean, I can't fault him. I mean, I'm probably don't want to be a bit arrogant here, but I'm probably his easiest client. My check-in is so simple because I just get stuff done.
Yeah, sure.
You know, and it's one of those things where I do believe if you invest in a coach, then it's not only about you, but it's giving them that respect because they take the time to put stuff together. So absolutely. I know with him, like, we'd be able to develop a great friendship. And this is a big shout out to Alex. I'm just grateful for him because he's one who's exposed me to pro coach and allowed me to come onto his sort of platform.
Yeah.
And I was super grateful to obviously Callum last year to get me onto the podcast, and it was him who kind of gave me that nudge to do something like this. So
absolutely.
I think every podcast I've done so far, I have thanked Callum. So I'm going to say it once more again. Thank you, Callum. Yeah. Thank you, Pro Coach, for giving me that drive to do this. But so it's a great little team, and it's good to hear you're part of that team.
Yeah,
it's definitely,
for sure. It is. I think it's all about, for me, for as long as I can remember, it is about a part of being something, if that makes sense. Yeah. You know, it's not necessarily the name that comes with it. It's feeling a part of a team. It's always very, very important to me, whether it's in my relationships, whether it's in my friendships, whatever it is, feeling it, like the togetherness has always been really important to me as an individual, you know.
Well, I guess when it comes to bodybuilding alone, it's always seen that kind of like lone soldier sport, you know, when you're kind of just headphones on, doing your thing, and you kind of just have that monotonous routine. And I think ultimately all of us do crave that community. Yeah. But when you're around people who are like-minded, it does give you that sense of like...
Yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? You know, there is a sense of when you are a bodybuilder, you can isolate yourself, particularly in a prep scenario. You know, you tend to isolate yourself from social events. You isolate yourself from maybe social media. You work in your own box, don't you? But outside of that individual scenario, that specific scenario, we are together because we are all working towards the same goal. Ultimately, if we're bodybuilders looking to compete, we're all working towards improving your physique and stepping on stage ultimately. So, you know, I think that's probably one of the biggest things that I've recognised and learned, you know, coming through the amateur ranks is, you know, yes, there are certain situations where you have to isolate yourself, and there is only you that can get the job done when it comes to competing. You've got your coach there, sure, advice, knowledge, experience, they can give you all that, but it's up to you ultimately to get the job done. And I think that's where, you know, you're there as an individual But then, like you said, it's like the Pro Coach Team Day, for example.
Yeah.
You know, fantastic example of a community coming together, and we're all on the same journey.
Yeah.
Sure, we're at different parts of the journey, but we're all ultimately on the same journey, walking towards the same goal, aren't we?
Sure. I mean, even when we look back at that day in December when we had that event, it's a great little thing to see where you have someone who's maybe fresh on to the coaching scene, people who are like up there, advanced, done multiple shows, got their pro cards. It was a great little event to get all of us together, and you realise we're all the same.
Undoubtedly.
You know, and I do believe, like, the die-hard bodybuilders go through that kind of journey, and we've all got this humility to us. And there's no kind of like, oh, I'm better or I'm bigger. And it was like we all want to see each other succeed because we've been there. We know what it's like to start at the bottom, you know, and it's just what I love about the community is just, that little drive to be like, mate, you've got this.
Yeah, I mean, the people that have worked their way up from the bottom, they do have a certain amount of humility to them because they've been there. You know, they've done it. It's like you've just said, they've started from the very, very bottom, and as long as you don't forget that, you can carry that along, and that will inspire people. It can be easy to get ahead of yourself. It can be easy. It's human nature, but you have to keep yourself in check.
Well, it's one of those things where it's a sad truth of like social media at the moment where I do believe people start off with good intentions, but when you do get that kind of following and we get that pro card or whatever you're chasing, you do have this kind of notch on your shoulder and you do think you're better. But I think the community I've been around, especially through pro coaches, we've seen that there are people with pro cards who've done multiple comps, who've very successful now, right, but they're still down to earth.
Yeah.
You know, and they never forget where they came from.
It's one thing that you've got to hold on to.
Yeah.
For sure. And it's one thing that I'm confident to say that I've been able to do. I'm still the same person that I was. I mean, I'm improved.
Yeah.
We're always trying to
twice the
improve.
size though,
but I'm still the same person that I was. You know, I'm still the same lad from a small town, you know, who just had big ambitions and dreams, you know, and worked hard to get there. I'm still that same person. I'm as real and as raw as you're going to get, you know, and I'll never lose that no matter where this takes me, you know.
It's true. I mean, like something my father taught me and my parents when we were younger was like, no matter what you attain in life, don't forget where you came from.
No.
Because I would always remember Dad used to drive like a VW transporter and people would say to him, Mr. Singh, where's your Mercedes? And he'd be like, this is my Mercedes. And it was that humility of saying, look, we may have financial abundance, but it doesn't mean we need to show it off. We just keep things to ourselves.
Absolutely.
And have that kind of humility.
Life can change very quickly.
100%.
As you know, we've both had them experiences in life where, you know, we've been going in one direction and suddenly there's a huge wall in the way.
Well, this is it though.
You know.
You sometimes when you get that kind of overconfidence and that hubris to yourself, life has a funny way of saying,
it does.
I'm going to knock you back down.
It sure does.
And humbles us.
Just go steady.
Yeah.
Just go steady. If things are going well, enjoy it.
Yeah.
Right? Just keep going steady. Just take your time.
It's one of those things I also say, like, when things are going well, we all rush to kind of forget whether it's God or universe or whatever to say thank you. But when things are going bad, we're rushing to them and being like, okay, I need help. It's like good and bad times, always be grateful.
Absolutely.
And keep that humility.
100%.
Let's start with that story then. So what got you into bodybuilding?
I think my story is quite similar to a lot of other people. I've always been extremely competitive. I've always wanted to be the best at something. Okay, that's just a character trait that I have. So I played football to a good level. I was never at the level that I am as a bodybuilder. I was never professional, but I always held myself to a high standard within whatever sport I competed in or played in. So when I played football, I would always make sure I did extra sessions outside of training. I would always make sure I went to the gym and I always made sure that I was the fittest person in the team. I was never the most skillful or the most talented, but what I worked out quite early on in my life is that if you can simply work hard at something or work harder than somebody else, you're probably going to prevail. So that's kind of my mentality that I took into football. It got me to a decent level, and then I got injured. So I had an injury to my lateral ligament. So it's not my ACL. It was my lateral ligament down the side of my knee, which is quite bad. So that ligament tends to not get damaged. That did. So that took me out of the game for 7 or 8 months. And within that time period, that's where my life really turned. It went from wanting to play football to actually I enjoy the gym side of things. I enjoy the resistance training side of things. And I kind of never looked back. And that's pretty much as simple as it was. I made a decision to stop playing football, and I made a decision to start bodybuilding, to start training.
How old were you when you made that decision?
So I've kind of had 2 stints at training. I kind of look at it in 2 separate blocks. So that would have been around sort of 21, 22. And I think I had 2 or 3 years at sort of training myself at a very, very low level, just enjoying myself, training to look good in the mirror. You know, at that age, I wanted to go out and, you know, meet people and you know, that sort of thing. I was going out and drinking. And then I went travelling. And then I had my second stint. When I came back from travelling, that's when I started coaching with Callum.
When was that?
That would have been 2017, 2016, 2017.
So you've been with Callum quite a long time.
Yeah, I have. Yeah.
Is he the only coach you've ever used, or did you?
Yes, he's the only coach that I've ever fully invested myself into. Yes.
What was it about Callum that attracted you to him?
Well, actually, I didn't know much about Callum when I joined him. I was referred to Callum from a friend called Mark, and I liked the way Mark operated. I liked the way he trained. I liked the way he approached his food and his training. 9 times out of 10, the athlete is going to be a mirror image of the coach. I know I am now as an athlete and as a coach. I'm the mirror image of what Callum is ultimately. So yeah, he put me in touch with him, and you know, the rest is history. We started moving through the ranks, you know, and I started, you know, competing at a higher level and getting better. But yeah, I think I've always been extremely competitive, and bodybuilding for me is a safe space. I'm good at it, but it also gives me the ability to be me, to be who I am. It's not encompassing. It's not only who I am, but it helps me, that part of me, be me, if that makes sense. That's really, it's kind of, in a way, it was kind of meant to be.
Cool.
That's kind of the way I look at it. I was always going to do this.
Cool. So when you say it's that safe space, it allows you to be you. Who is that? What is that you?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I think there's obviously many parts that make up a person, but I think you know, bodybuilding has given me a lot. Okay. It's enabled me to make to form friendships and relationships, right? Mm-hmm. So it makes up that part of me in the sense of I like being with people, I like feeling a part of a team, a group, whatever. So it's enabled me to be that side of me. Okay. It's enabled me to be competitive, like I've just said. It's enabled me to be that side of me. When I say safe space, it's a good question. I think it just makes me feel comfortable. You know, being myself. It's difficult to pinpoint. I'm trying to think of other things that it sort of enables me to be.
Because I know for myself, when I think of that word, safe space, I started lifting when I was in my teens because it was a way of me coping with the kind of self-destructive.
Yeah, I mean, we can get there. We can get there if you wish. Yeah, I mean, it has been the only thing that's been constant in my life throughout all of my challenges, and I've had some fairly big challenges, you know, in my life.
Care to share them, or?
Yeah, sure. I mean, both of my parents went through life-threatening illnesses. So there will be quite a lot of people that know that my mum was ill with cancer. She went through cancer treatment for 9 months. She is now clear of cancer. But not many people will know that when I was 16, my dad was also diagnosed with something called Toulouse-Hunt syndrome, which is an extremely rare illness. It's basically a swelling on the brain. Without the intervention of somebody flying over from America, he would have died as well. So, you know, I've been through some fairly challenging experiences. When I was younger, there's nobody that really knows this apart from my therapist, but I went through something when I was 6 or 7 years old. So I was molested as a child by a family member, and that was, while I can't remember the incident itself, it has a massive impact on how you grow and develop at that age. So seeing my parents go through what they went through, seeing my brothers go through the trauma that they went through, even though I wasn't necessarily conscious of all of that at the time because I was too young, I am still taking all that in. Mm-hmm. That is still shaping me into the person that grew up to have the problems that I did have with my mental health. So, yeah, I've been through some pretty challenging times, but I think the thing to take home there is that them challenges make you who you are today. I started addressing my mental health properly, maybe 2 years ago now, actually. So relatively
quite new still, yeah.
Relatively, quite late into my 20s.
What gave you that kind of drive to do that?
I always knew that I suffered with mental health. I always knew that I had a depressive tendency. I would have suicidal thoughts. It was something that I was kind of living with. Did I ever think that I would take my own life? No. But having suicidal thoughts in the first place is not good.
Yeah, mate. Oh, yeah, I can relate to that. Yeah, and it's not a.
Yeah.
I was probably that close from doing it when I was 14. Yeah, so I know what it's like to go down that dark hole.
You know, it was never a cry for help because it would never be like a fake, cry for help sort of thing. It would just be in my own mind. Mm-hmm. And I don't think the people truly around me understood what I was dealing with or what I was battling with. It was only when I started with my therapist and, it changed my life. I'm the person, I've changed more in the last 2 or 3 years than I've ever changed. Just understanding more of who I am as a person and why I feel certain ways at certain times and why I do certain things at certain times. Why I got into toxic actions, why I was doing things that weren't right for other people, them sorts of things that you do that are not necessarily good for you or the people around you. But yeah, that period changed my life, and I think the spark was realizing that I was hurting the people around me. Okay. I can live with my own mistakes, right? I'm man enough to accept that I'm a flawed human being and I'm going to continue to make mistakes through my life. And I'm man enough to live with that and I'm man enough to deal with that as long as I keep learning from them. But what I can't deal with is hurting other people.
What was it that you were doing that was hurting other people?
I was making mistakes within my relationships.
Okay.
I was seeking things that I shouldn't have been seeking. I was seeking validation that I didn't need to seek. And it all stemmed from what happened when I was a child. It all stemmed from that incident, or so my therapist seemed to link it all back to. And it did make sense at the time when we started putting the pieces of the puzzle together. And seeing that it's hurting people around you, that was what really sort of, made me. I can always remember the day where I thought, this is enough now, because it was a Friday morning. It was off the back of just competing, actually. Yep. I think when you come out of a prep, again, that safe space. When you're in a prep, you're so focused on the goal that you don't let other things bother you.
Yeah.
But when you come out of that prep, everything hits you like a ton of bricks.
You're back to reality, aren't you?
You're back to reality. The emotions. I've always struggled with my emotions. I've always had a really heightened sense of emotion, which is something that the DBT that I did when I was in therapy really helped me with, control and understand my emotions. It was a Friday. I went to see my parents. I said that I'd been going to therapy for 3 or 4 weeks. I went to the doctors. I went to get some medication to help me throughout the therapy. And we just had a really open conversation about, we'd never really spoken about what happened when I was a child. Not because they wanted to ignore it or because, they didn't want to believe that it had such an effect on me, but we just never spoke about it. And we went and had that open conversation, and obviously that was a big step in the right direction. I continued to have therapy for 12 months. Some weeks I would have it twice a week. So it was very intense at that point. But yeah, I'll always remember the day, it was a Friday, and I did these 3 things. I took these 3 steps, and then I never looked back. And now I'm sitting here, a completely different person. I'm not as angry. I'm not as emotional. I'm not as confused. I don't feel depressed anymore. I still get anxious, still get incredibly anxious. But I know how to deal with it better, and I understand why I'm feeling anxious. And 9 times out of 10, it's self-sabotage that makes me feel anxious. Yeah. So I already know. Well, I already know what I'm doing that's going to make me feel anxious.
It's the thing, isn't it? When we've kind of been a certain way for so long, that even though they're kind of perceived as negative emotions, it does give us some sort of comfort.
Yeah.
And to change that takes effort. And
it does.
There's a lot of kind of unknown and fear about that. So it's like we would rather stay the way we are.
Absolutely, mate.
And say to yourself, see, I knew I was right. Yeah. If I bothered changing, it was going to get worse. But you've got to face that thing on head on. Otherwise, mate, it's going to own you.
Therapy was the hardest thing that I've ever done. And I've like I said, I've cared after my mum when I've carried my mum to the toilet when she needed to go to the toilet because she was that weak. I was there for her every day, taking care. And therapy was more difficult than that, more challenging than that mentally. And I don't think there should be anything more challenging than seeing your mum go through 8 months of chemo and radiotherapy. But that was because it's like you've just said, you're having to face the person that you are dead in the face and go, I can't no longer be that person anymore because it's hurting myself and it's hurting the people around me.
It's a hard pill to swallow sometimes for people because a lot of us do live our life where we're happy, like 9 to 5, we do our thing, but we don't want to face that. So we're kind of in that routine. Yeah. But to actually sit down and say, okay, something is wrong, it takes a lot of courage.
It did. It did. And I am proud of myself for doing that.
As you should be. Yeah.
I wish I'd have done it sooner.
Right. Was it hindsight 2020? Yeah.
Look, what my issues weren't. I weren't murdering anybody. Yeah. I weren't bloody. Like I weren't a drug addict or anything like that. But in my own journey, I was hurting people along the way, and that's enough for me. Mm-hmm. That's enough for me to want to say I want to stop doing what I'm doing and change something that needs to be changed. And facing that and dealing with that guilt was very, very difficult through therapy. So the first sort of 3 or 4 weeks, it felt like a relief when I was going through therapy. I was getting all this off my back, and we were getting the sort of the way my therapist explained it. We were getting the skeleton put together. Right, this is the way she explained it. We're sort of going through my life and going through all the different events, and there are more events that we could go into, but we don't really necessarily need to go into all that. And then we started to put the meat onto the skeleton, right, which is starting to work everything out, right. And for the first 3 or 4 weeks, it was like a relief to get all this off my chest. And then when the guilt started to hit me, when I started to understand what I was doing and why I was doing it, going round in the same cycle, that's when it really hit me. And I just plunged into a deep depression. And that's actually when I went to talk to my parents and when I went to go and get medication. Because the way my therapist explained it, if anybody is, suffering with mental health, I think you've got to attack your mental health like a pincer. You've got to seek the therapy. Your therapist has got to understand you. You've got to connect with your therapist, right, on a human level. But you can also take it from a medical standpoint as well. Okay. So what the medicine's going to allow you to do is it's going to give you relief from that depression, because I was going into my sessions and I was feeling that depressed that I couldn't speak. So we weren't getting anywhere. We went through a two or 3 week period where I couldn't speak. I was that depressed. I was just a shell. Couldn't look people in the eye. And we knew we needed to change. So we knew we needed something to change. So that the medication gave me that space and that relief where the therapy could actually start working, because I could start talking. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Coincidentally, I'm no longer on that medication. So it served its purpose, you know. And then after a while, you know, the big thing for me was forgiving myself. Yeah. It was forgiving myself for all my mistakes, because, you know, it manifested itself from this incident, you know, and I have forgiven myself for you know, my mistakes in my 20s, and you know, I want to be a better person now, and I know I am a better person. So that's really my mental health journey. And, you know, for me now, I love explaining or trying to help people, you know, with their own battles, because, again, it's similar to like bodybuilding. I've been there and I've done it. I think experience goes a hell of a long way. You know, it doesn't just have to be mental health. It doesn't just have to be bodybuilding. I think, you know, if you can walk in that person's steps.
Well, this is it, though. We can read all the textbooks and understand things on that level, but until we've actually been in that scenario, we can't really truly empathize with someone and kind of give them that guidance and facilitation.
Absolutely, absolutely, and that's where I see myself now. I see myself looking back at the guys that are at the start of my journey and helping them along the way, and that's kind of where I'm at now. It's kind of, and it's given me a lot of fulfillment.
Because obviously, as you mentioned, the therapy was something recent, but there was something obviously driving you throughout the years when it was with football or bodybuilding. What was that? Because it's quite easy for you to have just given up and, okay, when I was young, this happened to me, or I had this. You could have easily been the victim. Why weren't you the victim?
It's an interesting question.
What was that hope in you? What gave you that drive to be like, I'm not going to let this get over me?
Well, I think the competitive side has always been very strong in me. I've always believed in myself. It can sound contrasting what I'm saying. Some of my mental health issues, and some of the things that I was doing in that cycle, come from a place of extreme insecurity and low esteem, right? But that's one side. The other side of me has this almost delusional belief that if I just keep working hard at something, I'm not the best at anything I do. I'm not the most academic. I'm not the biggest. I'm not the strongest. But you're going to be hard to push. You're going to be a hard push to find somebody that's going to work as hard as me, and that's going to believe in themselves as much as I do. Not cocky, not arrogant. I just believe that if I continue showing up, giving enough, I'm going to achieve what I want to achieve. And I've always believed that. And these last 6 months have just vindicated that. I'm now working for ProCoach, who are, in my opinion, the biggest coaching company in the UK. Yeah. And I've now achieved a goal that I set out to achieve when I very first started, which is becoming a pro bodybuilder. So that's vindicated that approach. And that's something that I will say to anybody: have some fucking belief in yourself. Yeah. You know, have some, apologies for swearing. Wow, have that belief to an almost delusional point. Just believe in yourself. True. You're not hurting anybody else by believing in yourself, are you? Well, you know, when people say have realistic goals and this and that, it's got to be realistic. Sure, make them goals realistic, but you got to believe in yourself and keep going.
Well, there's a difference between having that self-belief and love and arrogance, isn't it?
Yeah, there's a massive difference.
And like,
there's a massive difference.
If I can relate back to myself, like I pretty similar. I'd say I'm not the smartest person, and a lot of my issues came from insecurities and self-deprecation. But on the flip side, I've always had this relentless faith in myself and in the world. And when I had my issues, my accident, my cancer, I was like, cool, I've got this.
Yeah.
But it's funny.
And that belief
yeah,
helped you through.
yeah. And that's what it takes. I think this is something why I wanted to do this for, is like, we've all got a story and we make it so kind of big, but it's actually like, guys, you're not alone, you know, and that little voice that says in deep inside of that, you've got this, you got to lean on that, because that's what I did. You know, if I didn't have this faith in me, I wouldn't be here today. But something within me said, you've got this.
I think. So, you know what? I was thinking about this. I was thinking about sort of what questions you would ask me, and maybe we'd get onto this topic. And I think seeing both of my parents beat life-threatening illnesses, maybe not consciously, but subconsciously, gave me that belief that fucking anything is possible.
Yeah.
Anything is possible. Both of my parents could have, would have, should have been dead, and yet they're not. They both battled through, you know, illnesses that should have killed them, like I said. So for me, anything's fucking possible. Anything's possible. That's where I get that belief from. I think
it's true.
I've just answered that question.
No, there you go. You proved it, and you had that belief, and you just took the necessary steps to get where you wanted to. And as you mentioned, you're part of Pro Coach now. You've got your pro card. You're going to go into your Pure debut next year, or
25th of May 2024.
There you go.
2025.
5
sorry.
years. So you got a nice year of building still.
Yeah.
Let's go back to that pro card win, because obviously I know there were 2 shows that you did. You didn't win that first one, then you won the second one, was it?
Four.
Okay.
4 actually. Yeah. So I competed 4 times last year. So I competed twice in April and May. Kingdom Classic. In fact, the you know, on Facebook, when it was a year ago, it comes up. It was actually, it may have been a year ago today that I competed in the Kingdom Classic. Something like, I think it was March and April, sorry, not April and May. Came second. Went on to do the Ben Weeder. Came second. We looked, we assessed. We thought, okay, maybe not our time. And then that belief kicks in again. Halfway through the year, I said to Cal, you know, we're not done here. Let's go again. You know, I'm staying in shape. I think I'm getting tighter. Midsection's getting better. Conditions improving. As you stay, you know, if you stay lean for a certain amount of time, I feel like that brings out that gnarly condition. Yeah. So I could see the look was improving. Okay, the leaner we sort of stayed, the longer we stayed lean, I felt like the look was improving. So we started dieting again around June time. Competed at the Shrew Classic. Probably bought my best. I actually think I was in better shape for the Shrew Classic than I was when I won my pro card 2 weeks later.
That was the XL, wasn't it?
It was at the XL. Yeah. So I won my class, and then I know there's not actual placings, but it was between me and a lad called Max, super heavy for the pro card. We were sort of in the middle together, placed second, and then we decided to give it one more go. So I actually competed last year 3 times in the light heavies and once in the middleweights. So like I said, I won the middleweight class, second from last show. Went over to Norway, won the light heavies, and then won the overall. So both battles for the overall were with 2 super heavies. And again, I think you're an underdog. You know, anyone that's a middleweight, anyone that weighs 180 pounds on stage, is going to be an underdog, because you know, ultimately the judges are probably going to choose the heavier muscled athlete. But in this instance, I felt like I ticked all the boxes. There was a lot of shit thrown after I won my pro card.
Yeah, I remember that actually. Comments.
A lot of people saying, you know, I wasn't as big as the guy that, you know, I beat, which is true.
But if I remember, your conditioning was better.
But I felt like I had better shape, symmetry, proportions, condition was undeniable. And I think you've got to be there on the day as well. You know, a lot of these guys were looking through, you know, images, I don't know, not even high definition images, you know. So yeah, you know, that's obviously how I came about winning it.
How did it feel to win? What did that mean to you?
What was that overall riding emotion? I think for me, the winning my pro card was a way of giving back to the people that have invested in me so much.
Nice. That's a great look at it.
So my parents, for one, Lewis, my best friend, training partner, my partner at home, Claire, a way of giving back to people that have stood by me, maybe not through my best times. Going back to what we spoke about, when I was suffering with my mental health, being able to give them that enjoyment of me, calling them up or ringing them up or FaceTiming them and saying, I've just achieved this. Obviously Lewis was there on the day, and he was able to see that in person. So yeah, for me, it was a way of giving back. It was a way of giving back to Callum as well. I would say out of everybody in my life, I owe Callum the most in terms of the opportunities that he's given me. He saw something in me. I always knew that he saw something in me, because he's always given me these opportunities, and he's always believed in me. Doesn't say he does, because that's not the way he works. It's not the way he operates. But I knew it meant a lot to him on the day, to win that pro card for him and for myself. So yeah, first thing, it was a way of giving back. Secondly, it was a relief. Secondly, it was a relief that it had been boxed off. And then after, it's been an interesting one after. I felt like I was maybe comfortable being a high level amateur. Now I feel uncomfortable. I feel less. I would say I feel more insecure now.
Well, you've now got into you've almost leveled up,
Yeah.
and you've got into a bigger pool of pro professionals, and there's a lot more out there.
Absolutely, and they're at a higher caliber.
Yeah.
So I've sort of stepped out of my comfort zone again, and stepped into an uncomfortable space. But that's pushing me.
Yeah.
I've not been this body weight before at this level of condition.
What are you weighing at the moment?
220 pounds. I'm still lean. There's still room to grow. I think the goal is probably 235, 240 by the end of the year, which is more than achievable, considering what drugs I'm taking at the moment, how much food I'm pushing, how much space we've got to push into. It will be done.
Yeah.
So yeah, you quickly forget about it though. You see, you quickly forget about it. It's done now. I don't dwell on it anymore. Yeah. I don't go and polish my trophy every day and go, that was an amazing achievement. You just move on to the next. Yeah. The goal is literally destroy the look that I took in Norway, when I step on stage in New York next year. And if I'm going to be honest with you, show them motherfuckers that didn't think I'd be big enough or good enough that I am. And believe me, I will do that. I will do that.
What's the overall goal? Do you want to get to that Olympics?
The overall goal, yes.
Okay.
Yes, I do 100% believe that if I reach my full potential as a 212 bodybuilder, in terms of maxing the weight out, I can be extremely good within the division, because I've got so much weight to play with. I've got 32 pounds. 32 pounds of muscle still to put on my frame. And I know my frame can take it. It's not like I'm going to destroy the look in the process. I know that if I can put another 30 pounds of muscle on, I'm going to be very good.
Yeah. I think I don't really follow 212 scene much in the UK.
No.
I know that what's his name? Dean?
Yeah, we have Dean White.
Yeah,
we have Jordan Gomez that's competing very soon. There are some good 212 bodybuilders.
Because Dean's a notable one for me that I...
Dean's competed at the Olympia, hasn't he? Very, very good physique.
Yeah.
We have the muscle unit.
Okay. Yeah, I've met him.
Rob.
Great guy. Yeah, great guy, yeah.
Really nice guy. So there's definitely a space there for somebody else.
Yeah.
It's just about focusing on yourself, isn't it? Maxing your own potential out. If I come away from bodybuilding and think that I never fully reach my potential, that would destroy me.
Yeah.
That would destroy me. So we've got time.
Yeah, you're still young.
I'm still young.
Yeah.
I'm still growing. I'm still responding well to new things, new training, food. So yeah, it's all there for me to go and achieve. It's there. You've just got to go and do it.
Yeah.
So that's the goal.
I want to touch on one thing. You mentioned obviously you had your family there supporting you and Lewis, and you mentioned your partner.
Yeah.
Can you break that down? How did she kind of How was she there for you during that period, or was that during
Which period?
the
Through
period
prep or?
through the mental health battles and
I think she stood by me when many people probably wouldn't,
okay,
and she understood. She was understanding.
Yep.
She you can only be understanding in them sorts of situations. When I'm really suffering, when I'm depressed, when I'm anxious, when my OCD is going absolutely crazy, when I'm angry, because that was one of the things that I used to suffer with was anger, not towards other people but towards myself. And she tried to understand as best she could, and she fucking loved me. That's the only thing she could do. It was on me to go and fix my mental health. Ultimately, nobody else can fix it for you.
sure, yeah.
It's on you. You can't change for other people either. You have to change for yourself. As much as they can be sort of driving factors, ultimately it was me
Well, it's like a
that had to
coaching.
be fed up of my own bullshit.
It's like a coaching relationship. You can give your client the tools, the meal plan, the training, whatever, but it's up to them to do.
Absolutely,
the
yeah. Ultimately, it's got to come within yourself. I can't remember what quote that was, but it resonated with me. You only truly change when you are fed up with your own shit.
Yeah.
And it was at that point I was just fed up of my own shit, just going round and doing the same thing. Excelling in other parts of my life, but this part of my life here, it was holding me back. Like my mental health, it was holding me back from being happy. Does
How
that
long
make
have
sense?
you guys been together?
10 years.
Cool. So she's been there for
Yeah. I mean, we've not had the easiest relationship. We've split at times. When I went travelling for 6 months, and then we had a period of time when we were split up after that. But more recently, it's been a lot better, and I put that down to me sorting my mental health out more than anything, and sorting my own shit out really.
I think like right now we're kind of in a kind of, I believe we're in a world where it's kind of like a very much instant gratification. We can try to take on something and quite easily just dismiss it if it's not working. What's held you both together then? What's been that kind of foundation? Because you've obviously mentioned there's been many instances when she could have just left, or what's always brought you back together? What's that? What is your definition of your successful relationship now? What's kind of made you guys sit together so long?
Supporting each other, understanding each other, compromising when you can.
Yeah.
I think they're the foundations. We've been through an awful lot together for two people that are 31 and 32, 33. I think they're the foundations for any relationship. Maybe a bit of stupidity along the way as well. Like I said, there's probably been there's been times when maybe she should have walked away from the relationship, but she hasn't, and she chose to stick by me through them times, and me going and investing so heavily into my mental health was again another way of giving back.
Yeah.
Of changing, of becoming better, ultimately. But yeah, I think them three things: understanding, supporting, compromising, and then love's got to bind all them things together.
Yeah.
You got to love each other, of course you have.
100%.
I think that's what's held us together.
Cool, man. So if I was to compass everything you've kind of gone through so far in your life into this one question, what do you believe creates a healthy man then? Or what, if we look, if young aspiring bodybuilders or young men are watching this and they're kind of lost, or people in general, what would you say to people that is going to make them a good man or have those qualities to kind of succeed? What would be your advice to people? Going through what you have. Yeah.
Prepare to fail. Try and learn from them failures. I think that's probably the biggest thing that I've learned about myself, is that I'm never going to be perfect. I'm always going to make mistakes. That's part of being a human being. But the ones that excel and the ones that become better are the ones that learn from their mistakes, right? And try and grow from them. I think what makes it's hard to say, because what might make you a good man might be different to what makes me a good man.
Well, let's put it this way. What would you say to a younger Connor right now? If you could go back 10, 20 years, what would you say to that person?
Well, I'd tell him to go and sort his mental health out. I think that's the first thing that I would tell him to do. I think that's a hard question, mate. I'm struggling with that one, because I think there are so many things that make a good person, a good man, a man. You know, be family orientated. I think that's an important one. Understand and sort of recognise who your friends are. Try and be the best friend that you can be. Try and be the best son, daughter. Try and be the best family member that you can be. I think just trying to be a good fucking person. You know, we're all, like I said, we're all going to make mistakes, but try to be kind. Try to be a good person. Work hard at whatever you do. Stay grounded, like we spoke about. I think that makes a good person. But I think you grow into the person that you're going to be just naturally. I don't think there's necessarily a blueprint to that. That's why I'm struggling to answer the question, because, you know, I've only become the man that I've become through everything that I've been through. Nobody else is going to go through my individual journey again, just like somebody else is not going to go through yours. But I think that the big one is learning from your past experiences and learning from your mistakes, you know, and taking them forward and trying to not make them same mistakes again.
Good. No, it's right. I mean, you know, it's pretty much sums up the answer to the question. It's very much a case of, it's really easy to want to change, but change is hard. And we often do make those same mistakes over and over again because it's what we know.
Correct.
And moving forward is definitely one of our biggest challenges, but it's one of the things that frees us. You know, I know personally, the moment I stopped, you know, selling myself short and having these negative thoughts is the moment I took control of my life. You know, and unfortunately it had to come at the cost of me pretty much facing my death twice, and still having my moments right now where I doubt myself. But that's what we're human, aren't we?
Of course we are.
I don't think we're always gonna. We're never meant to be purely happy all the time. Because we wouldn't know what it means.
How would you recognise happiness if you wasn't sad?
Yeah, that's it. It doesn't mean we have to be sad in the sense of like in tears every day, but it's just
no.
You understand? Okay, some days you're just knackered or you just aren't feeling 100%.
Yeah.
You give that emotion its space, but then you.
Well, emotion is a range, isn't it? It's a range on a spectrum. For me, you know, part of my mental health journey was trying to narrow that spectrum down a little bit. So one day I would be absolutely ecstatic. The very next day I would wake up and I would think, why am I here? So I needed to sort of shrink that spectrum right down and control them emotions, because that's what I was struggling with. That was part of my mental health issues. But we are going to experience them range of emotions. Of course we are. And we should.
100%.
That's part of life. It sounds strange, but sometimes I enjoy crying.
Yeah, definitely.
I cry quite a lot. I am a very emotional person. Mm-hmm. I'm very empathetic. You should experience all that. That's part of life.
I think as a man, as men, I think a healthy male is someone who can, you know, acknowledge those emotions, but also be at the same time be ready to go and fight if need be.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, we're not going to be too caught on, because I think we're in this space now. We have very over masculine men, and then we have on the flip side we have too emotional men.
Yeah, we do.
We need to kind of bring that together and be like, okay, I've had a bad day today. I want to have a bit of a cry, cool, but I get up and carry on. You know, because
absolutely,
you know, that's how I see it. It's like a healthy man has his masculine and feminine energy kind of entwined.
Yeah,
and it's a case of you know, it's been a tough day, cool. But otherwise, it's go and get out there and get back at it.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I do is if I'm feeling like my emotions are extremely heightened, just take myself away for 5 minutes. I'll go and have a cry, and I'll feel like 10 times better, and then I get on with it. Yeah. Like, you know, within bodybuilding, you're not going to find anyone that's more of a bodybuilder than me. Yeah. Like that stereotypical eat chicken and rice, lift really heavy weights off the floor and love them clanging. But that's just one side of me.
Well, this is it though. This is the whole idea about this podcast is like
Is understanding.
It's understanding. We always perceive bodybuilders as these kind of big stoic men who just
Nonsense.
like that's it. But they don't realize that a lot of these people who get to where they are is because they've actually gone through quite a lot of dark periods.
Yeah.
And they just channel that kind of pain into something positive, which is
that's what you've got to do.
Yeah.
That's what you've got to do. It's about channeling things in a positive way. I was speaking to somebody yesterday about this. It's pretty much like you've just said. Them negative things that are going on in your life, or negative comments. Like I said, after I turned pro, I don't sit on them, and they don't make me feel bad. I channel them into making me a better bodybuilder in that case.
Well, it's also things when you realise that a lot of these people who do say those things, they're just projecting their own limiting beliefs onto you.
Yeah.
Their own sort of crap.
I don't even
Just
think
like,
about.
cool,
I
crack
don't even
on.
think about the person.
Everyone's valid to their opinion, fine, but it's not going to bother you.
No.
Because because you've gone through that journey, you know what you had to do to get there.
Correct.
And that's what matters ultimately. So there's always been someone that doesn't like you or is not a fan, but cool, that's their problem.
Life goes on.
Yeah.
Life goes on. I think this one of the biggest lessons that I've learned this year, and I wanted to get this in this podcast, and I felt like it was the right time to. I went to a funeral this year. He was a 19-year-old lad who used to train at Future Fitness, and he died. And me and Lewis went to his funeral, and I had this moment where I was driving from the church to the wake. And I had this moment where I was looking around, and me and Lewis were in the car, and it was like within that bubble, within that funeral, his parents' life was it's like their life was ending, right? They were going through the worst experience you'd go through as a human. And driving to the wake, I was looking around at all these people, and I was thinking, they just get on, like life just goes on. They don't know what's going on. They don't know that we've just gone from a funeral where somebody's just had to bury their son. Life just goes on, so you've got to get on with things. Does that make sense? Yeah. And that's one of the single biggest things that I've learned this year, and I've took already from this year is that life will just go on regardless. So you just got to go on. You just got to get on with it.
Yeah,
life ain't going to stop.
Yeah, and
life keeps moving, man.
Yeah, and it's the sad truth is like people are dying, people are being born, things are happening, but you've just got to focus on you.
You have.
And do your thing. That's it. You know, because otherwise, if you get caught in that drama, you're never going to.
It's quite a profound moment for me, actually. to kind of realise that.
But it's true.
It was sad at the time.
Well, because it shows you how finite life is.
That's what I mean.
This is why we've got to appreciate the moment. Like,
that's what I mean. I
always tell people, like, I had crossed the same road I'd crossed every day, and then next minute I woke up in hospital with 2 days to live.
Yeah.
You don't know what's around the corner.
Nope.
We almost perceive like, yeah, don't worry, I've got tomorrow, but the next second isn't guaranteed. So I've known since then is just live each moment in your best. Go out there, do good, be a good person, be a good human, and just pass that on.
That's what you can do, man.
That's what we can do, and whatever happens is going to happen. And until something does happen, you deal with it then. But for now, just be in the moment and enjoy this, because ultimately, this is all we have is right now. And with that said, I think that's a perfect segue to end this conversation and say thank you so much, Connor.
It's been a pleasure, bro.
And hopefully we can do another one. We'll get Lewis on actually next time as well.
That'd be super.
That's one thing I love about you two both, because you have such a great, it's almost like a brotherhood.
It is.
You know, you guys are like thick and thin, you know, train together, you have that. And it's great to see how you both have pushed each other to succeed.
Yeah, we complement each other really well as well, because we both bring different things to the table.
Definitely.
That's why we work so well as a partnership, as a pair, as a training partners, whatever.
Well, because you know, a lot of people obviously, when you're lifting with someone, it's a very personal thing, isn't it?
Huge.
So you need that right energy around you.
You know, as a bodybuilder who loves bodybuilding like we do,
yeah,
one of the most personal things, isn't it? It's one of the most important things.
Cool, man.
I can't train with anybody else.
Yeah, I'm the same.
I
like to just be in my headphones, do my own thing.
It's just I can only train with Lewis. That's it. I can't.
Yeah. Well, hopefully we'll have him on next time.
Yeah.
And we'll see how you two bounce off each other with it. Yeah. Well, mate, thank you so much again for your time.
Welcome.
And we shall conclude this there. Anyway, guys, look forward to the 4th episode next month, and we'll keep pushing these out. And thank you again for listening. Take care, guys.
Cheers, guys.